It's 30 minutes after the delivery appointment, and our driver was missing. He wasn't answering his phone, his dispatcher wasn't answering either, and this wasn't just another load delivering to a warehouse. The truck was carrying recycled crumb rubber for work being done on a football field for the NFL Indianapolis Colts. A crew was already on the job site waiting for the material. Without it, they couldn't work. The driver eventually arrived 4 hours late, and the job was shut down until the following morning. And the customer warned me that I could be responsible for more than $3,000 in lost labor costs. And the worst part? I had noticed a serious warning sign almost immediately after booking the carrier. But because I was under pressure, I moved forward anyways. In this video, I'm going to show you what went wrong, how I avoided the $3,000 charge, and the customer conversation that saved the entire relationship. Because sometimes the most expensive truck isn't the one with the highest rate. It's the last minute carrier you book without enough time to make sure you can actually handle the load. The shipment was picking up in New Jersey and delivering in Indiana. It was a load of recycled crumb rubber being used for work at the Indianapolis Colts football field. This wasn't a flexible delivery where the receiver could unload us whenever the truck arrived. The delivery was tied directly to a crew and a project schedule. People at that job site were waiting for our material. If the freight was late, the project slowed down or even stopped. That made communications and on-time delivery even more important than ever. We originally had one of our regular trusted carriers scheduled to handle the load. That was the good news. The bad news was their previous load had been rejected. That delayed them and forced them to fall off our shipment at the last minute. Now, I had a decision to make. I could go back to the customer and tell them I had lost the truck, or I could try to find a replacement and protect the delivery. I chose to find another carrier, and that's when the risk started going up fast. Because this happened at the last minute, I went to the load boards looking for another truck. Now, there's nothing automatically wrong with finding a carrier on a load board. It happens every day. Brokers do it every single day, especially when you're first getting started. The problem was the combination of load board and time pressure. I wasn't choosing from a group of carriers I already knew. I didn't have the benefit of an established relationship, and I didn't have much time to observe how this carrier communicated before trusting them with a critical load. We found a carrier, checked their authority, their insurance, and some basic credentials, and booked the truck. On paper, they appeared capable of handling the shipment, but almost immediately after dispatching the driver, I noticed the first warning signs. The driver had a very difficult time understanding and communicating the load requirements in English. Now let me be clear about something. The problem wasn't his accent, his nationality, or his background. The problem was that this shipment had specific time instructions, and I couldn't confidently confirm that the driver fully understood them. Normally, a dispatcher can help bridge that communications gap, but that only works if the dispatcher remains available and responsive. In this case, we didn't have reliable communications with either one. That should have caused me to stop and ask some hard questions. Does this driver really understand the delivery time? Does he know exactly where he's going? Can he explain the delivery requirements back to me? If something goes wrong, can I reach him? And can I rely on dispatch to respond immediately? Instead, I was focused on one thing: keeping the load covered. I had a truck, the customer was expecting the shipment, and I didn't want to call them and say I had lost our regular carrier. So I accepted the risk and let the load move. That decision came back to haunt me at the delivery. The delivery appointment came and went, but the truck didn't. We started calling the driver, no answer. We sent text messages, no response. Then we called dispatch, still nothing. Once the driver was 30 minutes late with no communications, I knew we had a serious problem. If a driver is running late but keeps you updated, you still have options. You can notify the customer, you can reset expectations, you can give the job site crew, accurate information. You may even be able to adjust the schedule. But when nobody answers, you have nothing to give the customer. No location, no update on arrival time, no explanation, and no confidence that the truck is even going to show up. Meanwhile, the clock is running and the crew is standing around waiting for our material. This is where communications problems become a financial problem. And eventually, I had to make the phone call no broker wants to make. Once the driver was late, we contacted the shipper and explained what had happened. We told them that our regular carrier had fallen off because their previous load was rejected. We explained that we had been forced to find a replacement at the last minute, and we were honest about the fact neither the driver or the dispatcher was responding. I didn't try to make up an arrival time. I didn't tell the customer the driver was almost there and when I had no idea where he really was. And I didn't blame the shipper, the job site, or the project manager. I told them what we knew, what we didn't know, and what we were doing to get answers. But the longer the truck remained missing, the worse the situation became. The crew stayed on the job site for approximately 4 hours, and eventually the project had to be shut down until the following morning. Then the customer told me what that delay could cost us. The project manager was honest with me. He explained he had workers sitting on the job site for hours with nothing to do. These workers had to be paid. The total cost was more than $3,000. And he warned me that they might have to pass that cost on to our brokerage. Now, think about that for a second. I booked a load expecting to earn maybe a normal freight agent margin of $150 to $250. Instead, one late delivery could have cost us more than $3,000 and damaged a very valuable customer relationship. This is something new brokers need to understand. The risk is not always limited to the profit on the load. When your service failure affects a production line, a construction crew, an installation team, or a customer deadline, the financial exposure can become much larger. Fortunately, we had something working in our favor. We had built a strong track record with this customer before the incident happened, and that mattered. We had already moved a lot of freight for this customer. They knew us as honest and dependable, and we communicated regularly. We didn't hide when something went wrong, and we had consistently done what we said we were going to do. One bad load didn't erase that history, but history alone wasn't going to save the account. We still had to take responsibility for what happened. So we spoke with the project manager's boss. We explained the situation and made it very clear that the project manager was not responsible for this failure. He had done his job. The failure belonged to us and the carrier we selected. We didn't throw the project manager under the bus, we didn't make excuses, and we didn't try to shift responsibility onto our regular carrier for falling off the load. We owned the outcome and the decision. Then we explained why it happened, and more importantly, what we would do differently to prevent it from happening in the future. The conversation saved the relationship. The customer didn't charge us $3,000, and we continued moving freight for them for several years. Here's the thing. Taking ownership doesn't mean pretending, every problem is personally your fault. I didn't cause the original carrier's previous load to be rejected. I didn't make the replacement driver arrive late. And I couldn't force the driver or the dispatcher to answer the phone. But I chose the carrier. I dispatched the truck. And I accepted the risk after recognizing that we could have a serious communications problem. That part belonged to me. Customers don't expect every load to be perfect. Problems happen in transportation. What they need to know is what you'll do when a load stops going according to plan. Will you disappear? Will you make excuses? Will you blame everyone else? Or will you communicate and take responsibility and solve the problem? Our track record earned us the opportunity to have that conversation. Our response helped us keep the customer, but I still had to learn from this mistake. If I were to handle that same load today, I'd slow the booking process down, and even if it meant the load was urgent. First, I'd verify the driver clearly understood the critical requirements. Not just by asking, do you understand? Most people are going to say yes. I would ask the driver or the dispatcher to repeat the appointment time, destination, and delivery requirements back to me. Second, I would confirm we could communicate during transit. Who's responsible for updates? Will the driver answer calls? Will dispatch provide tracking? Who's the backup contact if neither person responds? Third, I would treat a serious communications barrier as a service risk issue on an on-time critical shipment. This has nothing to do with where someone comes from. It's about whether the carrier can reliably receive instructions, confirm understanding, and provide updates when the customer's project depends on them. Fourth, I would reconsider whether using this unknown carrier was worth the risk. Sometimes the best decision is to call the carrier and say, hey, our original carrier fell off and I have not found a replacement that I trust with this delivery. That conversation may be uncomfortable, but it's usually better than promising service you're not confident that you can provide. We avoided the $3,000 charge, we kept the customer, and the freight was eventually delivered. But I don't consider that load a success. The crew lost 4 hours, the job was delayed until the next day, and the customer was put into a difficult position, and our reputation was placed at risk. The biggest lesson was simple. When a shipment is time critical, checking authority and insurance is not enough. You also need to verify the carrier's understanding of the load, their ability to communicate throughout the trip, and have a reliable plan for handling problems. A cheap rate means nothing if the truck shuts down your customer's operation. And a covered load is not truly covered if you can't reach the people hauling it. If you're a freight broker or freight agent, what would you do different? Hit me up in the comments and let's chat. If you're new to freight brokering and you want help starting your business, finding shippers and avoiding expensive mistakes, join my Freight Broker Startup Hub community using the link below, and I'll see you in the next video.